It was raining that night in San Diego, not the soft kind that rolls off rooftops, but a punishing, relentless downpour that hammered the city like it was trying to wash something away. At 11:47 p.m., in the quiet neighborhood of Mission Hills, a man hurried across the slick sidewalk toward the post office drop box. His name was Daniel Rourke, 37 years old, wearing a soaked navy jacket, hood pulled low, eyes darting back and forth like he expected someone to leap from the shadows. He clutched a manila envelope close to his chest, shielding it from the rain as if it were made of glass. Underneath the glow of the street lamp he paused, breathing hard. The street behind him was empty, or so it seemed. With one last glance over his shoulder, Daniel opened the drop box and slid the envelope inside. Then, without hesitation, he turned and walked away. That was the last time anyone saw him. The next morning, when Erica Thompson woke up and realized Daniel hadn't come home, she assumed he'd stayed at his office. It wasn't unusual. He'd been pulling late nights, stressed about a presentation, a contract, something she couldn't quite get him to explain. But when she called his cell, it went straight to voicemail. His office hadn't seen him. His car was gone. So was he. There were no leads, no signs of struggle, no video footage, nothing. It was like Daniel had simply evaporated into the storm. Erica filed a missing persons report. Detectives knocked on doors, reviewed security footage, retraced his steps. But the trail ended at that post office. The envelope he'd mailed that night, it never arrived. Daniel Rourke became one more name on a long list of unsolved disappearances. Friends mourned quietly. Family held on to hope that grew thinner each year. Erica moved on, at least on the outside, but somewhere deep in her the wound never closed. Before we continue with this chilling mystery, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Stories like this one are just the beginning, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. 14 years passed. In the summer of 2025, a young couple in La Jolla was renovating an old bungalow they'd just bought. The house had been built in the 1950s, and the walls held decades of secrets. While replacing a broken wall clock above the living room mantel, the husband, Jason, discovered something lodged in the wall cavity behind it. It wasn't hidden deep, just tucked away in the hollow between studs. He reached in and pulled out a thick yellowed envelope, sealed and stamped but never mailed. It was addressed to Erica Thompson, 41116 Midway Avenue, San Diego, CA. There was no return address, just a date in the upper left corner, October 23rd, 2011. Jason handed it to his wife, who hesitated. "Should we open it?" she asked. But they didn't. Instead, they brought it to the local police precinct just to be safe. Detective Ron Ellis was the one who received it. A seasoned investigator, he had seen plenty of forgotten mail turn up during renovations, but something about this one made him pause. The name Erica Thompson struck a faint bell in his memory. He ran it through the system. Then he saw it. A cold case file, 14 years old. Missing person. Daniel Rourke. Ellis felt a ripple crawl down his spine. He had the envelope tested, carefully photographed and preserved. It was genuine. The ink was faded but legible. The seal was intact. There was no evidence it had been tampered with. And just like that, a case long buried in dust and silence stirred back to life. When Ellis contacted Erica to deliver the news, she didn't speak for nearly a minute. The sound of her breathing on the other end of the line, shallow, stunned, told him more than words ever could. "I never got that letter," she finally whispered. I thought it was lost." She agreed to meet him at the precinct the next day. She didn't ask what the letter said. She couldn't bring herself to. Not yet. That night, Erica sat alone in her small condo, the sound of waves crashing in the distance, staring at the faded photo of Daniel she kept tucked in her bookshelf. 14 years of silence. And now, suddenly, his voice might be reaching her from beyond the grave. And she wasn't ready, not even close. 2 weeks before he vanished, Daniel Rourke began locking the doors twice. Not once, not routinely, but with a deliberate second click, followed by a pause and then a third check just to be sure. Erica had noticed. She'd also noticed the way he flinched whenever the phone rang and how he stared out the window late into the night, eyes narrowed, searching for something only he seemed to see. At first, she thought it was stress. Daniel was a systems analyst for a mid-sized cybersecurity firm in downtown San Diego. Deadlines came fast, and pressure was high. He'd been working late, sometimes not coming home until after midnight, but there was something different this time, something darker. She asked him about it over dinner one night. Candlelight flickered between them, plates half full. He barely touched his food. "You okay?" she asked gently. He looked up, startled, like he'd forgotten she was there. "Yeah," he said. Then, after a long pause, "Just a lot on my mind." "Is it work?" Daniel hesitated. "It's not something I can talk about. Not yet." The words landed heavily between them. Erica knew Daniel well. He was thoughtful, methodical, not one to jump at shadows, but lately his mind was somewhere else. His smile, when it came, never reached his eyes. He began spending more time in the garage. He said he was working on an old amplifier he wanted to fix. But Erica noticed he always locked the door behind him. Sometimes she heard typing through the walls or hushed voices, phone calls that stopped the moment she approached. One night, she caught a glimpse of something on his laptop, a logo black and green with the word Sidex. When she asked him about it, he brushed it off. "Just a legacy client," he said. "Not important." But it was. Daniel's best friend, Miguel Vega, had known him since college. They'd worked together at 2 companies before Daniel moved to his current job. Miguel was charismatic, sharp, and recently promoted to CTO at a growing AI firm. When Erica called him concerned, he came over right away. "I'm worried about him," she said. "He's different." Miguel nodded slowly. "He's been pulling away from me too. I asked him to lunch last week. He cancelled last minute, no explanation." "You think something's wrong?" "I don't know," Miguel said, eyes narrowed. "But if I had to guess, I'd say he's working on something big, and he's scared." Later that week, Daniel showed up at home well past midnight. His clothes were wrinkled, and there was a thin cut above his right eyebrow. Erica rushed to him, alarmed. "What happened?" "Nothing," he said quickly. "Just slipped, it's fine." But she could see it in his face, panic, barely contained. He sat on the edge of the bed and pulled off his shoes slowly, as if every movement hurt. "You can talk to me, Daniel. Whatever it is, I'm here." He looked at her then for a long moment. His lips parted like he wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, he nodded, kissed her hand and said, "I know." It wasn't long after that he began carrying a flash drive around his neck on a thin chain. He never took it off, not even in the shower. One night while he was asleep, Erica touched it gently, curious. Daniel stirred instantly, grabbing her wrist. His eyes opened wide, terrified, until he realized it was her. "Don't," he whispered. "Please." She never asked again. A few days before he disappeared, Daniel took Erica to Balboa Park. It was an ordinary Saturday. The air smelled of eucalyptus and fresh earth. They walked in silence for a while, holding hands. Then, without warning, he stopped and turned to her. "If something ever happens to me," he said quietly, "promise me you won't stop asking questions." Her stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" "Just promise." "I don't, Daniel, you're scaring me." "I'm sorry," he said, pulling her into a hug. "I just need to hear you say it." "I promise," she whispered, though her voice trembled. And in that moment, Erica felt something inside her shift, like the quiet certainty that life was about to change, even if you didn't yet know how. She held him tightly, not knowing it would be the last time. The house on Prospect Street had been empty for nearly a year before Jason and Natalie Keller bought it. A modest mid-century home with sea-facing windows and scuffed wooden floors, it needed work, but the bones were good. Jason was enthusiastic about restoring it himself. One Saturday afternoon in late July, as he removed the cracked wooden trim from the mantel in the living room, he noticed the wall clock hanging just a little too tight against the plaster. He unhooked the clock carefully. Behind it, The wall revealed a faint seam, an uneven patch of drywall that didn't match the rest. Curious, he knocked. Hollow. Something was inside. He grabbed a screwdriver and pried at the edge until the panel gave way, revealing a narrow cavity between two studs. Dust spilled out. Tucked inside was a faded envelope, thick, yellowed with time, its corners brittle. No cobwebs. Just quiet. He turned it over. There was a name in black ink. Erica Thompson. The address was handwritten, the zip code slightly smudged, but readable. In the top left corner, a sender's name had once been printed, but years of moisture had worn it nearly away. One detail remained untouched. The date. October 23rd, 2011. Natalie stepped in from the hallway, wiping her hands on a rag. "What's that?" Jason held up the envelope. It was behind the wall, like literally inside the wall. She peered at it, then met his eyes. "That's weird." They sat on the living room floor, staring at the thing in silence. Natalie traced her finger lightly over the seal. "Do we open it?" Jason hesitated. "No, I don't think we should. It's not ours." Later that night, they searched the name online. Erica Thompson. Dozens of results. Then one caught Natalie's eye. A news article dated 2012. San Diego woman still searching for fiancé who vanished without a trace. Jason leaned closer, his eyes scanning the page. The article included a photo of Erica standing outside a police precinct, holding a missing person flyer. The man on it was named Daniel Rourke. The same name was faintly visible beneath the smudged ink in the envelope's return corner. They looked at each other. "This is his letter," Natalie said, "from the night he disappeared." They didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, Jason drove to the San Diego Police Department and asked to speak with someone about a potential cold case. Detective Ron Ellis met him in the lobby, skeptical but polite. When Jason handed him the envelope, Ellis's expression changed. He took it carefully, like handling something fragile. He asked only a few questions: where it was found, had it been opened, any signs of damage. Jason answered quietly. Ellis promised to notify the intended recipient and run it through evidence control. Later that day, he pulled the old file. Daniel Rourke, age 37 at the time of disappearance, last seen mailing a letter at a neighborhood drop box on a rainy October night. Fiancée, Erica Thompson. Case remained open, but inactive. No new leads since 2014. Now this. Ellis pressed his thumb against the envelope, feeling the weight of it. Something was inside. Paper, maybe more. The seal had held miraculously. 14 years hidden in a wall, and now here it was, sitting on his desk, humming with the silence of all those missing answers. He picked up the phone and dialed the number listed on Erica's old emergency contact sheet. It rang 4 times. A woman answered. Her voice was cautious. "Hello? Ms. Thompson? My name is Detective Ron Ellis, San Diego PD. I think we may have found something that belongs to you." There was a pause. "What kind of something?" she asked. "I'd rather discuss that in person. Can you come in tomorrow?" Her voice caught slightly. "Is this about Daniel?" "Yes," Ellis said. He didn't tell her more. Some truths needed to be delivered face to face. When the call ended, Ellis sat back and stared at the envelope again. Every missing person had a trail. Some went cold, some went wrong, but none simply disappeared without leaving a shadow. Now, this letter was pulling that shadow into the light. He didn't know yet what it said. But whatever Daniel had written that night, whatever drove him to mail this before he vanished, it had been meant for Erica. And it was time she finally read it. Erica sat in the sterile interview room at the precinct, the envelope resting on the table before her, like a relic from another life. The paper was brittle, the handwriting unmistakably his. For a moment, she just stared at it. Her fingers trembled slightly. 14 years. 14 years of wondering, searching, of trying not to lose hope while learning to live without it. Detective Ellis sat across from her, quiet, respectful. He'd explained the chain of custody, assured her it hadn't been opened, and asked if she wanted privacy to read it. She'd shaken her head. She wasn't sure she could be alone with it. Not yet. Her fingers brushed the edge of the envelope. She exhaled slowly, then broke the seal. Inside, folded neatly, was a single sheet of lined paper and a smaller, lighter envelope with no markings. Her eyes locked on the handwriting, already recognizing the shape of his letters. She unfolded the page and began to read. Erica. If you're reading this, then I didn't make it, and that probably means I was right about everything. I didn't know how to tell you, not without putting you in danger, but I couldn't let you stay in the dark forever. Her breath caught. The words pressed into her like stones. There's something happening. Something big. I found evidence. Real, undeniable proof that Sidex is involved in something illegal. Surveillance. Tracking people without consent. Worse, I've been followed. Watched. I think someone inside the company knows I have the data. I made a copy. I hid it. I won't write where here, not in this letter, but you'll find clues if you look where we first said, I love you. Her throat tightened. She could barely hear anything beyond the rustle of the paper in her hands. You can't trust anyone, especially not Miguel. I know how close you two are. I didn't want to believe it either, but I caught him talking to someone from Sidex off the record. After that, things escalated. I think he sold me out. Please be careful around him. Erica's eyes widened. Her chest ached with disbelief. Miguel? No. He'd been there. He helped. He grieved with her. Didn't he? If something happens to me, promise me you won't stop. Don't let this disappear. Don't let them bury it. You're stronger than you think, smarter, I always knew that. I love you, I never stopped, and I'm sorry I left you without answers. I just didn't want to put you in their sights. Find the truth. Daniel. The room was silent when she finished. Her hands dropped to her lap, the letter limp in her grip. She couldn't move, could barely think. Ellis cleared his throat gently. Do you recognize the name Sidex? She nodded slowly. Daniel mentioned them once, said they were a client, but I didn't think anything of it. And Miguel Vega? Her voice was flat. He was Daniel's best friend. He still checks in with me once in a while. Ellis leaned forward. Would you be willing to let us question him? Erica didn't answer immediately. Her mind was racing. Miguel. He was charming, helpful, always knew what to say. But now small memories resurfaced. Strange deflections, moments of discomfort she hadn't fully processed. Had there been signs? I'll talk to him, she said finally. Let me see what he says. Ellis studied her. Are you sure that's a good idea? She looked down at the letter again. The weight of Daniel's words still clung to her skin. I need to know if he's lying to me. She placed the letter back into the envelope and clutched it tightly. The second, smaller envelope remained unopened in her hand. There was no name on it, no return address, nothing to suggest what it contained. Do you want that analyzed? Ellis asked. No, she said. Not yet. She rose from her chair, her body trembling with the surge of emotion held in check for far too long. 14 years of unanswered questions had come flooding back in a single page. Outside, the afternoon sun was blinding. Erica stepped into the light, letter in hand, her heart pounding. The world felt different, tainted, unsteady. But somewhere in the chaos, there was a purpose now. A direction, and she wasn't going to run from it. Erica dialed Miguel's number that evening. Her hand hovered over the screen for a second before she pressed call. The line rang twice, then clicked. Hey, stranger, he said cheerfully. Been a while. Yeah, she replied, her voice steady. I need to see you. Tomorrow. Can you come by? He hesitated just a moment too long. Sure. Everything okay? I'll explain when you're here. The call ended. Erica stared at the wall for a long time afterward, her thoughts grinding against each other like gears without oil. She didn't know what she wanted to believe, but Daniel had sounded certain. And if he was right. The next morning, Miguel arrived right on time, smiling as always. He brought coffee and a pastry from her favorite cafe. For old time's sake, he said, handing her the bag. She nodded politely, motioning him inside. Thanks. They sat in the kitchen. The sunlight filtered in through the blinds, casting stripes across the counter. Erica didn't waste time. Have you heard of Sidex? Miguel blinked. Of course. Daniel mentioned them once or twice. Why? She studied him. You sure that's all? His smile faltered just slightly. Erica, what's going on? She pulled out the envelope, laid it on the table between them. They found this, behind a wall in a house in La Jolla, dated the day Daniel disappeared. Miguel stared at it, then looked up. You read it? She nodded. He mentioned you. Said not to trust you. That you spoke to someone at Sidex, off the record. A long pause settled over the room. Miguel leaned back, folded his arms. That's absurd. Is it? His jaw tightened. Look, I don't know what Daniel was into at the end. He was paranoid. He thought someone was following him. He was spiraling. That's not what this letter sounds like. Miguel's voice rose. So you're seriously believing a letter that's been hidden in a wall for over a decade, over someone you've known for years? I was there for you when he vanished. You don't think I deserve at least a benefit of the doubt? I want the truth, she said quietly. Miguel exhaled, rubbed his face. Okay, yes. I talked to someone at Sidex once. They were considering me for a position there. It never went anywhere. You didn't tell Daniel? It wasn't serious, and he was already spiraling. I didn't want to feed into it. Erica absorbed his words, but something felt off. His reactions weren't the ones she expected. Not quite defensive, but too smooth, too prepared. Do you know anything about the data he mentioned? She asked. No, Miguel said. Nothing. Whatever Daniel thought he had, I wasn't part of it. He stood abruptly. I don't like what this conversation is turning into. I've always had your back, Erica. If you're suddenly going to start seeing ghosts, maybe I should go. She didn't stop him. As he walked out, he looked back, just once, and for the briefest moment, the mask slipped. A flicker of something darker passed behind his eyes. After he left, Erica sat motionless for a long time. She didn't know what she expected from that conversation, but it wasn't whatever that was. She pulled the smaller envelope from her drawer and opened it. Inside was a single flash drive. She plugged it into her laptop. It was encrypted. Daniel wouldn't have made it easy. But the presence of the drive alone confirmed what she now feared. He'd been telling the truth. This wasn't a delusion. He had evidence, and someone didn't want it found. She called Detective Ellis. I spoke to Miguel, she said. And? He denied everything. But it didn't feel right. He was too smooth. Did you get anything concrete? No. But I think he's hiding something. Ellis paused. I'll start looking into Sidex more deeply, and Miguel too. If there's a connection, we'll find it. Erica stared at the flash drive. I think Daniel left more, maybe clues, a way to unlock this. Then we follow that trail. As the call ended, Erica closed her laptop and sat back. She felt the shift again, like the moment before a storm breaks. Everything she thought she knew about Daniel, about Miguel, about the years that followed his disappearance, none of it was safe anymore. And now, she was part of something much bigger than grief. Detective Ellis wasn't the kind of man who rushed. He believed in groundwork, quiet steps that built toward revelations. And Sidex, what little he knew about it, didn't sit right with him. It had gone dark several years ago, absorbed into a parent corporation and stripped from public filings, but its footprint still lingered, and Daniel Rourke's name was buried somewhere in its shadows. He started with basic outreach, former employees, third-party contractors, legal filings from the last decade. The name Sidex Corp was rarely mentioned publicly after 2013. What few traces remained painted a picture of a firm that specialized in biometric systems, behavioral analytics, and surveillance integration. Nothing illegal, at least not on the surface. But buried in a 2011 corporate memo archived in a former employee's personal backup, Ellis found a name that made him pause: Daniel Rourke. Listed as Security Anomaly Consultant, contract basis. The term was vague, but the implication clear. Daniel hadn't just been investigating Sidex. He'd worked for them. Ellis called Erica immediately. He was on their payroll, he said, briefly. Looks like under a special audit initiative in 2011. Limited access, non-employee status. Erica's stomach turned. He never told me. He always said it was a client, nothing more. I doubt it was by choice, Ellis replied. Companies like this don't advertise internal threats. If he discovered something while under contract, they would have wanted to contain it, quickly. What about others? Anyone he might have worked with. I've got a few leads. Names of employees who left before the company folded into the parent group. I'll start contacting them. Over the next week, Ellis tracked down 3 former Sidex contractors. 2 were polite, firm, and offered nothing. The third, a man named Tyler Briggs, agreed to meet in a quiet corner of a bookstore cafe in Ocean Beach. Briggs was in his 40s now, with wary eyes and a voice that never rose above a whisper. You said you were looking into Daniel Rourke, he asked, stirring his untouched coffee. Ellis nodded. You worked with him? For a few weeks, Briggs said. They brought him in after there were questions about internal leaks. He was sharp, knew how to dig into patterns, behavior signatures, that kind of thing. What happened? Briggs looked around, then leaned in. He found something. Or at least that's what I think. One day he was at his desk, next day he was gone. They told us he'd finished the project, but his notes, his code history, deleted. Any idea what he was working on? Briggs hesitated. There were rumors about biometric data being used off-protocol, stuff that bypassed consent, full pattern tracking across social platforms, health data, even home devices. But no one ever confirmed anything. Ellis pressed further. You ever see him again? Briggs shook his head. But before he left, he asked me a weird question. Wanted to know where the backup servers were kept, not the mainframe, off-site. Did he find them? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he tried. If he got access to those backups, well, he'd have everything. Erica sat across from Ellis a few days later, listening as he recounted the meeting. He was close, she said. Whatever he found, he was getting ready to expose it. Which makes him a liability. And in companies like Sidex, liabilities don't get second chances. They reviewed the contents of the flash drive again. Still encrypted. Erica remembered something Daniel once told her, about hiding information in plain sight, layering security not just digitally, but emotionally. He left a clue, she said. Maybe more than one. I think he wanted me to find something. Ellis nodded. Then we find it. Together. Outside, the fog had rolled in thick and low, clinging to the streets like a whisper. Erica held the drive in her palm, its weight suddenly more significant than she had realized. It wasn't just a fragment of Daniel's final days, it was the thread. And now they were following it straight into the heart of a secret no one had dared to name. Erica spent hours poring over Daniel's old journals. She'd kept them in a sealed box after he vanished, pages filled with fragmented thoughts, sketches, and cryptic scribbles that once felt like the private musings of a restless mind. Now they looked different, intentional, loaded. She flipped through one marked Sept Oct 2011. On the inside cover, Daniel had drawn a crude map, just a few lines across and a word written twice in different ink. Sentinel. She didn't recognize it at first, but as she turned the page, she found another clue. Vaults never stay locked when you know the key is memory. Something clicked. Balboa Park, the Museum of Photographic Arts. Years ago, Daniel had taken her there on one of their first dates. He'd called it Sentinel of Light. He said the place captured memories better than words ever could. She rushed there the next morning. Inside the museum, everything felt unchanged. Quiet, dimly lit corridors lined with glass cases and framed prints. Erica moved through them slowly, searching not for art but for a feeling, a hidden rhythm in the walls of a place Daniel once loved. Then she saw it. Tucked into a corner near the back, beside an old Leica exhibit, was a bench carved with initials, D+E, 2010. Her breath caught. She reached beneath the bench, her fingers brushing something hard and cold taped to the underside. A small brass key. No label, no tag. Just as she slipped it into her bag, her phone buzzed. Ellis. "I've got something," he said. "A utility record under a shell company linked to Sidex, property near the border, leased for data redundancy archiving. I pulled the permit. It's a warehouse, decommissioned 3 years ago." She was already heading for the door. The warehouse stood in a dusty industrial zone southeast of Chula Vista. Ellis met her there. The building looked abandoned. Padlocked doors, overgrown weeds, shattered security cameras dangling like corpses from their mounts. "Ready?" he asked. They pried the side entrance open with a crowbar. Inside, the air was stale and heavy with silence. A maze of rusted shelving units stretched across the floor, most empty. In the back, past a stack of old filing cabinets, they found it, a locked metal trunk bolted to the floor. Erica knelt beside it. The brass key slid in with a satisfying click. Inside was a tangle of items, a broken Polaroid camera, 3 rolls of undeveloped film, a cracked portable cassette recorder, and a microfilm canister sealed with red tape. She picked up the canister slowly. Ellis leaned in. "What is it?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But he wanted me to find it." Ellis reached for the recorder. He pressed play. Static crackled through, followed by Daniel's voice, strained, urgent. "If you're hearing this, I've probably failed. I made a copy, not digital, too risky, too traceable. If you find the film, don't trust anyone until you know what's on it. Especially not Miguel. I saw him, I know." Then silence. Ellis shut off the recorder. The air around them thickened. "This changes things," he said. Erica held the canister against her chest, her mind spiraling. "What if it's all here? The data, the proof, everything. We'll need to get it developed. Carefully." They took everything and left quietly, locking the building behind them. Later that night, Erica sat alone with the microfilm in her hands. She turned it slowly, letting the overhead light catch the edge of the red tape. Her thoughts circled Daniel's voice, the raw fear behind it. He hadn't just uncovered something, he'd been hunted. She checked the lock on her front door, twice, then pulled the blinds closed. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't just remembering him. She was following him, piece by piece, step by step. And the deeper she went, the more real it all became. Not a ghost, not a memory, but a man who had tried to expose something that never wanted to be seen, and now she was walking his same path. Erica couldn't sleep. The microfilm sat in her drawer, untouched since she brought it home. She kept imagining Daniel's voice from the recorder, the desperation in it, the warning. Don't trust anyone, especially not Miguel. She didn't want to believe it. Miguel had been by her side through everything, but now every kind gesture, every comforting word from the past echoed with a second meaning. The next morning she made a decision. She called Miguel. "I need your help," she said. "Can we meet?" His voice was cautious but agreeable. "Of course, what's going on?" "I found something," she said. "I think Daniel left behind real proof." "About Sidex?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Where?" "I'd rather show you." They met at her condo. She watched him carefully as he stepped inside, his smile guarded. He noticed the pile of papers on the table, Daniel's notes spread out beside the recorder. "You weren't kidding," he said, picking up a notebook. "This looks intense." She didn't respond. Instead, she walked over to her laptop and hit play. Daniel's voice filled the room. Miguel froze when he heard his name. "Don't trust anyone until you know what's on it, especially not Miguel. I saw him. I know." Miguel didn't say anything at first. He stood perfectly still. Then he turned to her, expression unreadable. "That's a serious accusation," he said slowly. "It's not an accusation," Erica replied. "It's a warning, from a man who's been missing for 14 years, who may have been killed." He exhaled through his nose, then sat down. "Okay," he said. "You want the truth? Here it is." She didn't speak, just listened. "I did talk to someone at Sidex, but not the way Daniel thought. They approached me years ago. Said they were working on next-gen security, AI, predictive data, facial mapping. They wanted my insights. I was flattered. I thought it was networking. I didn't know what they were really doing until it was too late. You didn't tell Daniel, Erica said. I didn't know what to tell him. He came to me, suspicious, saying he'd found something. He looked scared. Like he didn't sleep, didn't trust anyone. I panicked. I told them he'd found something. I thought they'd talk to him, reason with him, shut the whole thing down. Not whatever happened. You gave him to them, she whispered. His voice cracked. I didn't know they'd make him disappear. I thought they just wanted control of the data. To silence the leak, Erica backed away from the table, heart pounding. You were his best friend. I know, Miguel said, and I live with that every day. You think I haven't thought about telling you? About coming clean? You let me believe he was just gone, she said. You let me mourn him alone. I couldn't undo it, he said, and I couldn't face you. Erica stared at him. Her hands were shaking. Her mind raced through every moment of the last 14 years. Every call, every coffee, every reassuring word from the man who'd delivered Daniel to the people who destroyed him. You need to go, she said. Miguel didn't argue. He stood, walked to the door, and paused. If you go public with this, he said, they won't let you walk away. You have no idea how far this goes. She didn't answer. After he left, she sat in silence, the weight of the truth pressing down like a tidal wave. Betrayal, not just of Daniel, but of her too. The man she trusted, leaned on, had been part of the machinery that consumed the person she loved. The microfilm felt heavier than ever. Whatever was on it, it wasn't just proof anymore. It was justice. For Daniel, for the life they lost, for the lie that replaced it. She picked up the canister and held it tight. The silence in the room wasn't peaceful. It was the moment before the next storm. Erica woke to the sound of her phone buzzing. It was still dark. The screen flashed with a message from Detective Ellis. Call me, urgent. She sat up, heart already racing. When she dialed, he answered on the first ring. We need to meet, he said. Now. 30 minutes later, she stepped into the back of a coffee shop near Mission Bay. Ellis looked tired, his tie loosened, eyes bloodshot. What happened? She asked. I think someone's watching us, he said. My apartment was broken into last night, nothing taken, just touched. The kind of message that says, we're inside and we're not afraid to show it. Erica swallowed hard. I checked your name in the database, Ellis continued. Someone ran a trace on your phone 2 days ago. Not a standard law enforcement search, private. Foreign encryption signature. You think it's Sidex. I think whatever's left of them doesn't want you opening that film. Erica gripped the edge of the table. What do? We stay quiet. No emails, no calls. And whatever you do, don't go anywhere alone. When she returned home later that morning, her front door was unlocked. She froze. The locks hadn't been forced. Nothing was broken. But the kitchen light was on. She'd turned it off before leaving. She walked in slowly, her keys clutched like a weapon. Her laptop sat open on the counter, a single file displayed on the screen. A photo of Daniel. Below it, in large red text, drop this or you'll join him. Erica staggered back. Her hand trembled as she shut the laptop and pulled the power cord. She grabbed the microfilm and left without even locking the door. She went straight to Ellis's precinct. They processed the device, confirmed the intrusion, but the system trace was scrambled. Whoever had done it knew how to cover their tracks. We need to move fast, Ellis said. This isn't about threats anymore. They know you have something. And they're escalating. Later that evening, Erica sat in her car outside a copy shop, scanning the street through the rearview mirror. A black SUV had followed her from the gas station. No plates, tinted windows. It pulled to a stop half a block behind her, then idled. She turned the key and drove. The SUV followed. She turned again. It stayed with her. Her pulse thundered. She called Ellis, voice low. I'm being tailed. Black SUV, no plates. Don't go home, he said. Drive to the Federal Building. I'll meet you at the rear entrance. She took a winding path through downtown before arriving at the secure lot. The SUV peeled away as she turned into the protected zone. Ellis met her at the door. Come on. You're staying in protective custody for now. They brought her to a safe house in Point Loma, a small windowless apartment monitored by federal marshals. Ellis stayed with her through the night, reviewing what they had. "Do you know what's on that film?" he asked. "No," she said, "but I think Daniel did." "I looked into his name again," Ellis added. "There's a federal tag on his file now." Recently added. Status changed to deceased classified circumstances. No death certificate, no autopsy, just a closure line. Erica's breath caught. What does that mean? It means someone wanted his file sealed permanently, which means someone powerful enough made it happen. Erica leaned back. The room felt colder now. That night, she watched security footage Ellis had pulled from outside her apartment building. The black SUV had circled the block 4 times. On the third loop, 2 men in dark clothes exited and walked the perimeter of the building. One paused near her door, leaned in close. The camera caught his face for just a moment. Blank, professional, unrecognizable. "Private security?" she asked. "Possibly. Or worse, contractors, ex-intelligence. They're not stopping." "No," Ellis said. "And that tells us one thing. Whatever Daniel found wasn't just damning. It's still dangerous, still active, and you're holding the last thread." Erica didn't sleep that night. She lay awake listening to the hum of the hallway lights, the distant crash of waves against the cliffs. Somewhere out there, men were watching, waiting, but so was she, and she wasn't afraid anymore. 3 days into protective custody, Erica received a message through Ellis. A woman had contacted the department claiming she knew Daniel. Her name was Layla Monroe, former Sidex employee, no official record after 2012. She said she had something important, something that couldn't be shared over the phone. Ellis arranged the meeting at a neutral location, a quiet church basement in Hillcrest. Layla arrived late, sunglasses still on, despite the dim light. She looked exhausted, worn down by years of silence. When she saw Erica, she stopped and stared for a long moment. "You look just like he said you would," she said softly. Erica's voice was firm. "You knew Daniel?" Layla nodded. "He was the only one inside who cared what we were building. The rest of us just looked the other way." Ellis stepped forward. "What exactly did you do for Sidex?" Layla hesitated. "I worked in predictive behavior analysis. We monitored user patterns across social platforms, healthcare data, financial movement. Nothing illegal at first. But then the models got more aggressive. They wanted real-time tracking, location, voice, emotional tone, and then decision prediction." Daniel stumbled onto the part we weren't supposed to touch. "What part was that?" Erica asked. "Behavioral influence. Targeted psychological nudges. They weren't just watching people. They were trying to shape what they did next." Erica felt a chill rise in her spine. "Daniel found out?" Ellis asked. "He was doing a systems audit. He saw what we were flagging, found logs showing unauthorized data streams from smart devices, cameras, speakers, even baby monitors. He came to me in the parking lot one night, shaking. Said if the public saw this, the company would collapse. He was going to make it public." Erica stared. "So what happened?" "They moved quickly," Layla said. "He left me a message the next day, encrypted, scared. Said he made a physical backup and would leave clues in case anything happened. Then he vanished." Erica reached into her bag and placed the microfilm canister on the table. Layla gasped. "You found it," she whispered. "He really did it." "We haven't decoded it yet," Ellis said. "We don't know what's on it." "I might," Layla said. She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from her coat pocket and unfolded it. "He sent me this before he disappeared. Coordinates, a locker number. I didn't have the courage to follow it, but if you're ready, I'll take you." Ellis nodded. "We go together." "No risks." They drove an hour north to a storage facility in Escondido, a nondescript complex surrounded by a chain-link fence and rows of identical units. Locker 18B. Layla unlocked it with a key she said she never dared use, until now. Inside was nothing but a filing cabinet. They opened it slowly. The top drawer held only one item, A sheet of paper with a handwritten code and a phrase, "Use this key with the film, cross-reference grid 14E. Layla studied it and nodded. This is it. Daniel was indexing the footage. The grid matches the behavioral model overlays. It's how we sorted data packets during analysis. If he embedded content that way, it's a map. The film will show what they captured and how they used it. Erica looked down at the paper, at the key Daniel had left behind. It was both terrifying and brilliant, evidence structured in the very language of the machine that had consumed him. Back at the safe house, Ellis called a federal contact with secure media processing access. The film would be developed under supervision, offline, no chance of digital leakage. Layla agreed to testify if protection was guaranteed. Erica sat beside her, gripping the edge of the table. Why now? Layla looked at her with tired eyes. Because I spent 14 years hiding while you spent 14 years grieving. That's not justice, that's fear. And I'm done being afraid. Erica nodded slowly. Daniel had built a trail out of shadows and silence, and now, finally, people were beginning to speak. The Secure Development Lab sat beneath a shuttered university research building, a facility now only accessed by federal authorization. Ellis had pulled strings, leveraged every favor he had, and arranged for a one-time use of its analog microfilm reader and processing room. No internet, no external feeds, just silence and the ticking hum of old machinery. The microfilm was placed carefully onto the reader. Erica stood beside Layla as the first images appeared. Grainy, grey-toned footage filled the screen, timestamps, metadata, and then something unmistakable. A living room, a child playing near a smart speaker. Moments later, the speaker activated, unprompted. It recorded, processed, and filed the audio clip into a behavioral analysis log. That's not just data capture, Layla whispered. That's passive surveillance. Ellis leaned closer. Keep going. They scanned frame by frame, hundreds of examples, homes, offices, cars, some with people unaware they were being watched, others showing subtle interactions, ads flashing on phones seconds after private conversations, doorbells recognizing emotional tone, and then adjusting ambient lighting accordingly. Daniel had documented everything. Not only how Sidex gathered data, but how it altered behavior through environmental response, temperature shifts, ad targeting, phone vibrations, music changes, all seemingly innocent. But when layered, control. Then came the names, high-profile targets, journalists, activists, judges, their metadata, location history, emotional baselines. Notes in the margins written in Daniel's hand. Triggers embedded, reactions measured, results consistent. Erica's stomach turned. He was showing how they were experimenting, not just monitoring, but pushing people. Then the final reel loaded. At first, static. Then, footage of Daniel himself taken from a grainy angle. He was seated at a desk, eyes scanning lines of code. Then another angle. Outside a building, a blurred SUV idling across the street. Then another, his apartment hallway, his door. He knew they were watching him, Ellis said quietly. And he filmed them watching. Layla exhaled sharply. That's a security log. They turned their own system on him. One frame caught Erica's breath, Daniel walking with her in Balboa Park. The camera followed from a distance. The date, 2 days before he disappeared. He wasn't paranoid, she whispered. He was right. Then the feed froze. An alert popped up on the control panel. External breach. Ellis reacted instantly. They found us. A loud thud echoed through the corridor. Lights flickered. From the hallway, the dull metallic slam of the main entrance being forced open. Take the film, Ellis ordered. He grabbed the canister, stuffed it into his coat. Out the back, go! They ran through the emergency stairwell, Layla clutching the files, Erica barely keeping pace. As they reached the lower exit, another bang echoed through the hall above. Boots, heavy, tactical. Gunfire cracked. Ellis pulled his weapon, shielding them as they exited into the rear alley. Get to the car, he shouted. They sprinted toward a black SUV parked under the overhang. Erica slid into the back, Layla beside her, shaking. Ellis threw the vehicle into gear just as two masked men appeared in the lot behind them. A bullet shattered the rear window. Erica ducked, Layla screamed. Ellis drove hard onto the road, tires squealing. They didn't stop until they reached the federal marshal's office in Kearny Mesa. The building went into lockdown. The microfilm was placed under armed guard. A federal team reviewed the footage. Within hours, top officials were briefed. Ellis paced outside the secure vault, face pale. They were waiting, watching the reader room. They knew we'd find it. Erica stood silently, her ears still ringing. "We have the proof now." "Yeah," Ellis said, "and they know it." Layla sat nearby, hands trembling in her lap. "They tried to kill us." "No," Ellis replied grimly. "They tried to erase you, that's worse." Erica pulled Daniel's notebook from her coat. The last page contained a phrase she hadn't noticed before. "Truth doesn't scare them. Exposure does." She read it aloud, and the room went quiet. The footage spread fast, but not through official channels. Erica, with Layla's help, uploaded a redacted version of the microfilm's contents to a network of independent journalists and transparency organizations. The files were encrypted, broken into segments, and seeded across multiple platforms. Within 12 hours, the first headlines appeared. Whistleblower footage reveals mass surveillance operation. Biometric manipulation, how one company tried to control behavior. Federal agencies couldn't ignore it. By the end of the day, subpoenas were issued. Former Sidex board members were summoned. Civil liberties groups demanded action, and behind closed doors, something began to crack. Erica stayed under protection, her identity withheld from the press. Layla was placed in witness safeguarding. Ellis testified in a secure briefing before a federal oversight committee. And the microfilm? It was now government evidence, its contents verified, its chain of custody intact. But the war wasn't over. 2 days after the data went public, Erica's car was sabotaged. She'd taken a brief authorized trip to retrieve clothes from her old condo, escorted by federal agents. As she turned the ignition, the dashboard lit up with a voltage alert. The agent stopped her before she pulled out of the driveway. The bomb squad later confirmed a tampered battery module with remote trigger capability, crude, effective. "They're desperate," Ellis said. "This is the last stretch." Despite everything, Erica refused to be silenced. She sat with federal attorneys, walked them through every piece of Daniel's notes, the map he'd left, the redundancies he'd built into the trail. It became clear Daniel had planned not just for exposure, but for survival of the truth, even if he didn't. "You understand," one of the agents said. "What he did was illegal, but also necessary." Erica didn't flinch. He tried every other way. They closed every door. The Department of Justice opened an official investigation into Sidex's parent company, Halbridge Dynamics. Leaks revealed the firm had absorbed Sidex in a shadow acquisition to bury the surveillance architecture and rebrand it for military use. The outcry was national. On the 5th day, a federal press conference was held. Though no names were mentioned, the story broke through mainstream channels. Major news outlets began referencing Project Echo, the internal name Daniel had scrawled in the margins of his reports. His name remained sealed to protect Erica and the integrity of the case, but his legacy began to surface. Anonymous sources referred to him only as the architect. Meanwhile, Miguel Vega vanished. He left no trace. His phone disconnected, his apartment empty, his office cleared out. Ellis tracked activity on his financials. One large withdrawal, routed through a cryptocurrency converter, tied to an offshore account. "He's running," Ellis said. "And that tells me he knows his time's almost up." Erica read the news with numb hands. None of it brought Daniel back, but the truth, his truth, was no longer buried. Later that evening, she sat on the safe house balcony, watching the sky shift from orange to indigo. A silence settled around her, no longer threatening but whole. Inside her coat pocket, she kept the last page of Daniel's notebook folded tight, worn at the corners. She read it again. "If you find this, it means I didn't make it. but maybe the truth did. She thought about how long it had taken to get here, about every moment spent grieving a man she loved without knowing what really happened, and how now she stood at the end of the trail he'd carved in the dark. "He didn't die for nothing," she said aloud. Layla stepped beside her. "No, he didn't." Across the country, discussions ignited in legislative halls. Privacy laws, once buried in bureaucracy, surged to the forefront. Civil rights groups mounted legal challenges. Public protests erupted. And in private boardrooms, people once untouchable now watched their foundations shake. The world was beginning to turn, not because Erica demanded justice, but because Daniel left a map, and someone chose to follow it. The fallout came fast. Within a week, Halbridge Dynamics was hit with a federal injunction. Former Sidex executives were subpoenaed, forced to testify before a congressional committee under oath. Whistleblower protections were extended to former employees, and over a dozen came forward, each confirming the existence of Project Echo, each validating what Daniel had uncovered. Stock markets reacted. Halbridge's valuation plummeted. Their board of directors resigned en masse. Civil lawsuits surged. The Department of Justice launched a formal criminal investigation. For the first time in years, accountability didn't feel theoretical. Erica followed the coverage from a distance, her name still protected, her face still unknown to the public. But behind the veil, her presence was felt. The files she and Layla had released had been authenticated. The microfilm had become a symbol, a relic of analog resistance in a digital war. And Daniel's name was spoken in quiet rooms, revered and feared. One morning, Ellis knocked on her door with a grim expression. "They've confirmed it," he said. "Daniel's status." She knew before he said it. "Deceased?" He nodded. "The report was suppressed for years, but the remains were found. Buried near an abandoned service route outside San Isidro. No dental match at the time. But DNA confirms it now. Shot once, left in a shallow grave. No ID, no belongings." Her knees buckled slightly, but she didn't fall. She'd suspected it, known it in her bones. But the confirmation felt like the final page of a book she didn't want to finish. "There's something else," Ellis said. He wasn't alone. She looked up, eyes sharp. There were tire tracks, signs of a struggle, another man's footprints, bigger, likely his killer, but no match in the system. Could it have been Miguel? "We don't know," Ellis said. "But we do know this. He's gone. Interpol has been notified. His last digital trace was in Panama. No border re-entry." "It's like he vanished." Erica turned away, walked to the window. Outside, the sun was bright, uncaring. "He'll run forever," she said, "because that's all he has left." Ellis nodded. "You did what he couldn't. You brought the truth into the light." "But not justice," she said quietly. Later that afternoon, she was invited to a private meeting with the Congressional Committee overseeing digital ethics and surveillance reform. They didn't ask for details. They simply thanked her, promised protections, spoke of legacy. But Erica didn't care about politics. She cared about Daniel. After the meeting, she visited the place they used to sit together on weekends, the rocky overlook at Sunset Cliffs, the same place he once told her he felt closest to truth. Wind swept her hair back as she stared out at the ocean, the finality of his death anchoring her. She reached into her coat and pulled out the necklace he once wore, the flash drive chain. She'd found it weeks ago in the hidden vault, wrapped in a note. "For you if I don't come back." Inside it, encrypted and locked, was a video. She watched it that night. Daniel sat at a desk, eyes tired but steady. "If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry. Not just for what happened, but for what it took from us. I tried, Erica. I really tried. I didn't know how deep it went. I thought if I left quietly, maybe they'd let it rest. But I couldn't turn my back, not on you, not on the truth. If this changes anything, I hope it's that someone someday knows that you were the reason I didn't stop. You gave me courage. You gave me purpose. And even when they took everything from me, they never took that." She cried for the first time in weeks, not from fear, but from love. The kind that lived on after silence, after shadows, the kind that wouldn't be buried. Spring came early that year. The winds along the coast softened, and with them came the faint stirrings of something Erica hadn't felt in years. Stillness. Not the kind born of silence or fear, but of something deeper. Acceptance. She returned to Daniel's cabin. Tucked away in the hills outside Julian, it had stood empty since his disappearance. It was small, built by hand, a weekend retreat they once dreamed of finishing together. She hadn't been back since the search teams had cleared it in 2012. Now she opened the creaking door and stepped inside. Dust covered everything, but the air was dry and calm. She moved slowly through the rooms, running her fingers across old counters and weathered books. A photo of them together still sat on the mantel, faded but untouched. In the drawer of his old writing desk, she found a journal. Not one the police had logged. It was wrapped in cloth, bound tightly, with Daniel's familiar scrawl on the first page. Final thoughts. If no one finds this, it's okay. I wasn't writing for them. Erica sat down and began to read. He had written about fear, about isolation, but also about clarity, about the power of information, the cost of truth, about knowing what it meant to stand alone when the system was designed to erase you. I'm not a hero, he'd written. I was scared every day, but there comes a point where silence becomes complicity. And I couldn't bear that weight anymore, not when I saw what they were doing, not when I saw how easily we could lose ourselves to comfort. Page after page, he detailed not only the operation, but his resolve to leave a trail, not for fame, not even for justice, but for her. Always for her. Erica closed the journal gently and placed it beside her. That evening she sat on the front porch of the cabin, watching the sky burn gold over the trees. Birds chirped, the breeze carried pine and dust, and for a moment she felt him beside her, not in grief, but in presence. 3 months later, she founded the Rourke Institute for Data Transparency and Whistleblower Protection. The non-profit focused on legislative reform, public awareness, and supporting those who chose to speak when the cost was high. It started small, a handful of lawyers, a digital archive, a podcast series retelling Daniel's story, anonymized at first, until public sentiment shifted. Then came the waves of support, academics, journalists, survivors of surveillance-based intimidation. The Institute grew, and so did his legacy. Daniel became more than a name. He became a warning and a standard. Students wrote essays on his case, activists invoked his words, politicians, once skeptical, referenced Project Echo during campaign speeches. Erica watched it unfold with a quiet kind of pride, not because she wanted recognition, but because he deserved remembrance. One afternoon she received a package, no return address. Inside was a flash drive, encrypted. She ran it through the Institute's secure system. It was footage, a single file, a hallway camera, time-stamped 4 days before Daniel disappeared. It showed 2 men entering a server room, one of them Miguel Vega. The second man's face was obscured, but the footage included audio. They spoke quietly about suppressing logs, about tying off loose ends. It was the final proof. Erica turned it over to the DOJ. It was admissible. Sealed indictments followed. An international arrest warrant was reissued. Interpol flagged Miguel's alias 3 weeks later at a private airstrip in Brazil. He escaped again, but now he was a fugitive in the eyes of the world. Daniel had written once, "You don't have to catch them, just keep them running. Make sure the truth chases them louder than they can silence it." She smiled when she read it again. He'd done that. He really had. And now, so would she. 14 years after mailing a single letter in San Diego, Daniel Rourke's story was no longer one of disappearance. It was one of revelation, sacrifice, and a legacy etched in truth. Erica stood quietly at Daniel's newly placed headstone. It had taken months of legal battles and paperwork to secure this small spot overlooking the ocean. A memorial site, simple and dignified, with his name clearly carved beneath the words he'd once scribbled at the end of a notebook. Truth doesn't die. It waits. She knelt and placed a fresh bouquet of white roses beneath the stone, fingers gently brushing the engraved letters of his name. The wind was gentle, bringing the scent of salt and sand, and with it, a comforting sense of closure. "You did it," she whispered softly. "Your voice is everywhere now." As she rose, she felt the presence of someone behind her. Ellis approached slowly, respectful of her moment. "They indicted 3 more people yesterday," he said quietly. "High-ranking executives, publicly this time. No more sealed files." She nodded. "It's what Daniel would have wanted." Ellis stood beside her for a long moment, gazing at the horizon. "You changed things, Erica. You turned his story from a secret to a catalyst. People are paying attention now. Daniel isn't just remembered, he's respected." She smiled faintly, heart swelling. He deserved that. Later, alone again, Erica took a slow walk along the cliffs. Waves crashed below, their rhythm familiar, steady. She carried the worn envelope Daniel had mailed all those years ago, now sealed carefully inside clear protective plastic. She held it close, feeling its weight, knowing the significance it carried, not just in words, but in lives touched, changed, and saved. At home that evening, Erica sat quietly at her desk. Her phone buzzed gently. A text from Layla. "We're safe. Thank you for giving us courage." She replied simply, "Thank Daniel." And then, from a number she didn't recognize, another message appeared. Brief. "Encrypted through secure servers. Sorry for everything, Miguel." She stared at it for a long moment before deleting the message, unreadable emotion tightening in her chest. He didn't deserve her forgiveness, and she owed him nothing. Her focus turned instead to the open laptop in front of her, the web page of the Rourke Institute, now a thriving hub of activism, support, and advocacy. Daniel's face was there, smiling, alive in the collective consciousness of a society learning to fight back against unseen threats, and below, a small link labeled, "Share your story." Erica clicked it, fingers poised above the keys, and then she began typing, "My name is Erica Thompson. 14 years ago, someone I loved stood against something dangerous, something powerful. He vanished because he refused to look away. He knew truth carried risk, but silence carried complicity. He chose truth." She paused, took a breath, and continued, "Now it's your turn. Don't let fear decide for you. Speak out. Act. Remember him. Remember Daniel Rourke." She pressed submit. Within minutes, notifications appeared, messages from strangers, thanking her, promising to act. Her heart lifted slightly. Daniel was no longer an unsolved mystery. He was a movement. Erica glanced back at the shelf behind her, at the photo she'd placed beside Daniel's old journals. A memory, vibrant and alive, untouched by shadows. She whispered softly, "You never stopped protecting me." The evening drew on quietly. Eventually, Erica switched off her lamp and moved to the window, gazing out at the city lights glittering beneath the darkness. For the first time in over a decade, she felt peace. But even now, as the world shifted slowly toward accountability, she knew the story was never truly over. Because truth, as Daniel had always believed, doesn't end. It echoes. Thank you for following Daniel and Erica's journey. Remember to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that challenge what we know about truth and justice. And don't forget to click on the suggested video to continue uncovering mysteries that will keep you questioning everything.